The Monster Below by Greenback, read by Deathlight. Chapter 15, Celestia's Abomination. Our trip through Equestria started off well. We rode through its many cities and towns. Pegasus had messengers flying ahead to spread word of our arrival. Once we got there, we would set up a meeting in the biggest hall, gym, or stage available to hold question and answer sessions for the locals. Truth be told, I felt more like a circus animal than a representative of a major company. Strutting across the stages and going down the aisles while stretching and flexing my wings, even letting them touch them if they wished. Following that was a demonstration of my flight abilities, proving that we now had the power to let Earth ponies fly. I thought our PR campaign would be easy, and that all of Equestria would quickly embrace this technology. But alas, real life wasn't like my fantasy. Just like in Manhattan, towns and settlements were split 50-50 on if my wings were a good thing, or if Metacomp was messing with something that shouldn't be trifled with. I wasn't openly heckled, but it was hard to ignore the scowling faces when I was doing my tricks, making me feel like a fool's magician trying to impress an adult audience and failing miserably. As we continued through Equestria, things began to change. Hecklers began to pop up, booing and raising a fuss. There were few at first, and were quickly ushered out from the venues, but they began to grow in number. Soon the booing turned to yells, and the protest of what Metacomp was doing was wrong. Soon the booing turned to yells, and then to protest that what Metacomp was doing was wrong. Then came the vegetables and fruit thrown at me, and I got unwanted practice at dodging them. I was baffled, so too were Beatbreaker, Coin Counter, and the other higher-ups who came on the trip. This shouldn't have happened. Almost no one opposed wing implants for crippled Pegasi, but there was no such enthusiasm for us. The higher-ups were concerned about the investment, but they could stay on the sidelines. I didn't have that luxury, as I had overtaken Beatbreaker as the public face of Metacomp. I kept telling myself that the ponies who objected to me getting wings were only angry about it as a matter of principle, and not actually angry at me. After all, I was just a spokespony. But spokespony or not, it became hard to ignore the protests, heckling, directed my way. It didn't help that I saw Mangus grinning after every performance, like he was a king and I was his jester, playing the fool for his amusement. There were two destinations on the trip I feared going to. The first was Counterlot, where I had to present my wings to the Equestria's higher class, and to the princesses themselves. The thought scared me out of my wits, not because I was afraid of Celestia and Luna would boo and hurl tomatoes at me, but because I didn't know what they thought of my wings. If they were wavering, any mistake on my part would have drastic consequences. The thought of Celestia scowling at my stupidity scared me half to death. Counterlot was still a few months away, but my spirits were still afraid as we headed to another destination I feared, Cloudsdale. I was heading into the capital, the beating heart of their race. What would they think of me? Would they see me as an abomination? Someone foolishly trying to force his way into their ranks. That's what Cloudsdale Times has been saying. Letters and editorials betrayed him as a fool and disgraceful of the proud legacy of Pegasi. I brought my concerns up with Coin Counter, but he assured me that this was necessary. For we had to prove to Pegasi that Metacomp's wings were just as good as the ones nature gave them. Coin Counter was right, but his words did not soothe my fears. When the day arrived and our train came to a stop beneath Cloudsdale, our traveling group headed up to the city. Various spells were cast to allow non-Pegasus ponies to walk on clouds for the duration of our stay, and we were guided to the city's famed stadium, normally reserved for sporting events and various competitions. We had been granted use of it for our presentation. Beatbreaker had a blast during the walk to the stadium, astonished at being able to stroll over the puffy clouds without fear of falling through. I wish I could share her enjoyment, but it was impossible for me to ignore the suspicious looks I got from passing Pegasi. There were a few friendly faces, and many glares sent my way, making it feel like everyone was on edge. All it would take to set things off was a single mishap, mistake, or misspoken word. My fears were momentarily forgotten when we reached the stadium. I had seen it in pictures and movies, but nothing compared to standing outside the polished marble walls and gazed up at the many statues, precious gems, and banners billowing in the mid-morning breeze. It was so big that I felt tiny walking inside. Even more so as seeing all the seats filled to capacity. There were thousands of ponies gathered together to see our show. But when I scanned the crowds, I found an unsteady mixture of curiosity, excitement, and anger. Coin Counter sensed the animosity in the air. Quickly, he began his presentation, giving a speech that focused on how the company's wings could help those who had lost their own. I was backstage during it all, trying to build up my nerve to head out. Beatbreaker had taken a cloth and wiped the sweat from me, giving constant assurances that I was going to be fine. From anyone else, the assurances would have been empty. But hearing them from Beatbreaker gave me the boost I needed to head out on stage. They gave me the strength to start my routine as thousands of ponies watched me perform tricks, spins, and loops. But even as I flew about, I could tell most of the crowd wasn't happy as seeing an Earth pony trying to impress them. Things only got worse as the expedition went on. Being under the gaze of so many unfriendly ponies was like flying through a toxic soup, and I could only handle it for so long. As the presentation finally, mercifully drew to a close, I tried not to just give up and fly away as fast as I could. I heard the shot a split second before something hit me in the face, and my vision went red. I momentarily lost control as I panicked, thinking that someone had thrown a knife into my eyes. But I could still see, though it was painful to do so. Liquid hit my tongue, and I tasted tomato. More jeers and more vegetables were thrown at me. Most hit, and I struggled to stay afloat. The hecklers below laughed, yelling at me to get out of Cloudsdale. The others joined in and quickly filled the air, drowning out Coin Counter's pleas for calm. Whether the yells were directed towards me or the hecklers, I couldn't tell. But it was like the entire stadium had finally gave up the facade of a friendly place and turned against me. The stress, instinct took over, kicking into fight or flight mode. Muscles were primed for a life or death struggle and my stomach was emptied, freeing my body from dividing precious energy to digesting food. Unfortunately, I chose to throw up all over the haters, who were dressed in a water full of vomits. Not hanging around to hear the outraged howls, I took off, zooming out of the stadium and back towards solid ground, leaving Cloudsdale far behind. Needless to say, the vomit waterfall incident didn't go over well in the Cloudsdale press, and neither did my sudden departure. Well, Coin Counter defended me as best as he could, saying that the incident came from the unfriendly reception we received. There were too many proud ponies in Cloudsdale who wouldn't take insults, even accidental ones, lightly. When we got our hooves on a special edition of the Cloudsdale Times, there were full 5 pages devoted to the letters from the editors. Beatbreaker and the others cautioned me not to read them, but I did anyways, wanting to learn why so many didn't like me. Of all the letters, most said that the wings were a good idea, but that I was a pathetic choice to show off the wings. Why have an Earth pony fly, the letters asked, when Metacom could have gotten an injured Pegasus and given him or her wings instead. As the train made its way down the tracks that night, I remained in the lounge car, looking outside at the nighttime sky above, fruitlessly looking for an intercom. I was so caught up in my own thoughts, I didn't even hear Beatbreaker walk in. "Hey, are you okay?" I wasn't, but I nodded, not wanting to get into a discussion about what happened. "You don't look okay." Beatbreaker said, "I'm just tired, that's all." I told her. Getting up so early so many times wears you down, you know. She wasn't fooled. I'm a doctor, I know illness when I see it, either the body or the mind. I expected a lecture, but she gave none. Instead, putting a hoof on my shoulder. "When you want to talk, I'll be here to listen." Then giving me a pat, she left. I knew Beatbreaker wanted to help me, and I appreciated her offer, but felt that she couldn't help me. I had achieved my dream, or at least, a modified version of it, and thought all of Equestria would have been amazed at my achievement. But instead, they were divided, bickering whether or not I was a good thing. An ill omen or mistake that should have never taken to the sky. Nothing was going as I hoped, and my dream had become a nightmare. but I couldn't figure out why. Was it the wings, the idea of anyone being able to get wings? Or, as I feared, did the problem lay with me? I remained in the lounge car long into the night, staring out at the night sky and wondering what I was doing was wrong. After the fiasco at Cloudsdale, Quincounter decided the best course of action was to head to familiar territory and divert the train to Sadalanka, saying I deserved a short break after all I've done. I realized he was trying to make up for what happened, and I was grateful for the efforts. If nothing else, a few days at home with my parents and out of the public eye would rejuvenate my soul. With the engine going at full speed, we reached Sadalanka in short order, arriving at the station just as a light rain fell from the cloud-covered sky, forcing everyone to take an umbrella as they disembarked. It was an odd experience having touched my hooves on the stone platform. Just a few years ago, I'd been eager to leave Sadalanka. I'd been a nobody back then, and now I was the most famous or infamous pony in Equestria. Strange how so much can change in such a short time. Mangus led the way as others got off the train. His return to Sadalanka was more joyous than my own, for I had nothing but pleasant memories of this place, most of them no doubt involving me. His Quincounter sent off aides to arrange lodging at the local hotels. I told him that I didn't have to worry about lodging for myself, as I already had a place to stay. And with that, I started off towards my parents' home. Big Breaker jogged after me, though I wanted time to myself. I was fine with her coming along. In fact, I welcomed it. Her presence would help me relax and unwind. My peace would be difficult to find, though, for it wasn't long before Mangus and two of his guards followed me. Though this was my hometown, I knew Quincounter wasn't going to take any chances with my safety, and I dispatched Mangus to make sure I didn't come to harm. He kept his distance, no doubt aware that complaints from me would see him removed, and I did my best to ignore the three of them. Beside me, Beatbreaker whistled as we went along the trees. "So this is where you grew up?" I nodded, used to the towering trees and thick greenery. But for Beatbreaker, he came from the arid fields of the savannas. Enormous forests and blue-green mountains were things out of myths and fairy tales. We headed down a small path until we reached my childhood home. It hadn't changed much since the last time I saw it. The lawn was still well kept, and there was a new coat of paint on the walls, but it was identical to the way it was years ago. The two of us walked to the porch where Beatbreaker waited as I knocked on the door. The knob turned a few moments later, and Dad came out. Yes, can I? He stopped. "Silver speak?" I smiled. "Hi, Dad." He was so shocked at seeing me that it took him a few moments to get himself back together. Once he did, he got a smile equal to mine and turned back inside. "Honey, come and see who landed on our doorstep." My mother rushed out and practically squealed with joy at seeing me. Wasting no time fulfilling the time-honored tradition of mothers trying to crush their children to death beneath their loving embrace. "Oh, my little Stallion has come home." Loosening her grip as seeing my struggles to breathe, she asked, "Not that I'm not happy to see you, but what are you doing here?" "Metacom's tour took a little side trip," I wheezed. "Wanted to see how you two were doing." "Really? We read about the tour in the papers, but it said you were coming by next month." I was surprised that Sadalanka's newspaper had talked about the tour. "Really? What else did the paper say?" My mother looked beside me and gave a pleasant smile our parents gave when trying to change the topic. "Beatbreaker!" Beatbreaker trotted up to the door. "Hello, Miss Blastbloom and Mr. Goldplate. It's good to see you again." Mom gave Beatbreaker the same embrace she gave me, only slightly less crushing. Beatbreaker was surprised, but went along with it, getting considerably more out of it than I did. It occurred to me that she hadn't seen her family in years, and that could have been the first time she had been embraced since leaving home. Looking behind Beatbreaker, my mother spotted Mangus and his goons. While she and my dad were somewhat knowledgeable about what Mangus done to me in grade school, they still believed that he wasn't a bad pony, just one who needed to be straightened out a bit. They probably hoped that the passing years had done exactly that. "Well, Mangus Bluehorn," my mother said, "you've certainly grown." Mangus put on his most charming smile and wiped his hair back. "Indeed I have." he boasted. And definitely for the better. Mom wasn't quite convinced, and from the looks of things, neither was Dad. I see. Well, Silver Speak, Beatbreaker, I imagine you're tired. Why don't you come in and get a drink? We started inside, so did Mangus and his guards, but I held up my hoof. No thanks, you two, I said. We'll be fine. Where are your guards? Mangus pointed out. And you can guard the lawn, I said. Plenty of room to see oncoming threats from there. Closing the door before he could answer, I slipped the lock in place and joined my parents in the kitchen, where Dad was already making some treats and preparing tea. Once it was done, we took our spots at the table. I looked around while sipping. The place doesn't look any different since last I was here, I said. We're thinking about getting some new wallpaper, Dad said, giving the house a new color scheme. How about my room? Oh, we kept it right the way it was, Mom said, in case, you ever came home. From the way she said it, Mom wasn't quite adjusted to having her little baby not living at home anymore. My parents are doing the same. Beatbreaker said, they say they keep my hut the same way it's been when the time comes for me to return home. She chuckled. I don't think they believe their child has grown up. Mom chuckled. Oh, I know that feeling well. Beatbreaker slipped a glance at me and winked. She had come to my rescue, realizing how awkward things had been. I winked back, grateful for the save. Well, son, Dad said as he finished his cup. I understand you've gotten some wings. I had known this moment would come up eventually, but I wasn't sure how my parents would take it. While I had written the occasional letter to them since the whole wing fiasco had started, they had never directly commented on my new appendages, or had made any mention of all the hullabaloo that surrounded it. I could endure other ponies mocking me, but the only opinions I truly cared about, even about the princesses, were those of my parents. Above all others, I hoped they'd be proud of my efforts to better myself. I was gonna find out if it was true or not. Yes, I have, I said, raising my chest. Would you like to see them? Dad nodded. I stepped away from the table, took hold of my coat, and yanked it off, spreading my wings as far as they would go. For a long moment, my parents were lost for words. I studied their faces, trying to discern if they were happy or sad, but couldn't tell which it was. My mother left the table and came over, stretching her hoof out. May I? I nodded, and she stroked my right wing, hooves going through the feathers. They feel so real. How'd you do it? You'll have to ask Beatbreaker that, I said. She's the one who made them, not me. Making them was difficult, Beatbreaker said, but I won't bore you with all the details. She went to my wings, pointing out scars where they had been joined to the flesh. The big deal, so to speak, is that we can attach wings to anyone, regardless of species. In fact, the two of you could get wings too, if you wanted. My mom blushed. Oh, thank you, dearie, but we'll wait to see how they work after a year or so. Was she tactfully saying no, or telling the truth? I couldn't tell. Dad came over and put his hooves between my feathers as well. I flexed my wings so I could see all the muscles and intricate details up close and personal. What do you think? These are amazing, he said, impressed. Never thought I'd see the day where Equestria would get anything like this. Never thought you'd see your son become Pegasus either? He chuckled. No, can't say I did. The reunion with my parents went as well as I could have hoped, but it was cut short when Mangus pounded on the door. When my dad opened it, he found my annoyed guard holding a note that had been delivered from Coin Counter via one of the Pegasi on staff. Opening it, I read that despite what he had said earlier, Coin Counter wanted to do a brief presentation that evening to Satalanka, having only just learned that there was a convention of prestigious unicorns from all throughout Equestria meeting in town. And these weren't just any ordinary unicorns, but ones from high society. If we could impress them regarding the wings, then they'd go and tell everyone how magnificent they were. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and couldn't be passed up. I wasn't happy, barely an hour into relaxing at home, and already I was being called to do another show. Beatbreaker and my parents said I should say no. I had come to Satalanka to relax and recuperate, not perform before crowds of hecklers. I was tempted to agree with them, but CoinCounter was right. We needed support of those whose influence couldn't be understated. It was an opportunity we couldn't pass up. Besides, if I could impress them, then that might help other ponies accept me. And all I required was an hour of my time. Handing the note back to Mangus, I told him I'd be there. Beat Breaker and my parents were surprised, but I assured them it'd be easy. Besides, it was only for an hour. What's the worst that could happen in the span of 60 minutes? As Mangus headed back to town, I flew him to the performing arts area. Normally we'd do the presentation inside a convention hall, but with Satalanka's only gymnasium already full of tables and booths for the convention, we'd have to perform on one of the outside stages, as lights and a podium were set up. I only hoped that we wouldn't get rain. Clouds were coming in, and it looked like the next few days were going to be stormy ones. When the show was about to start, I wondered just how many ponies would come, considering how this has been thrown together within the span of an afternoon. But word travels fast, and the news that Satalanka's most famous son had returned home brought almost everyone out. When all was said and done, I peered out from behind the curtains and saw over 1,000 unicorns before the stage, with my parents in the front row. Not only that, but there were also ponies setting up microphones and audio equipment near the stage. Not only was I going to be performing in front of 1,000 high-class unicorns, but I also had put on my best show for the radio to broadcast it to all corners of Equestria. I could do it, of that I had no doubt. But the problem with live broadcast was if something went wrong, there were no retakes. Anything and everything could happen. Things started off well. I walked out onto the stage as CoinCounter began to talk, tweaking the dialogue so it catered to unicorns. Noting how my wings allowed me to surpass so many barriers that separated Earth ponies from greatness. Imagine then, what would happen once they were available to everyone, unicorns included. While I performed my tricks and maneuvers, CoinCounter pointed out that with wings, unicorns would be both masters of magic and the sky. With a sly smile, CoinCounter pointed out that pre-orders for the wings were currently available after the show, which got a good laugh from many of the audience. To my delight, everything went smoothly. Compared to Cloudsdale, there were no hecklers, hooligans, or those out looking to disturb things. On my last flyover, I made extra sure to swoop past my parents, who were in awe at seeing their son doing the impossible. As I flew towards the stage, I caught a glimpse of Mangus, who seemed permanently unhappy. No doubt, he thought it should be him on stage being admired. Instead of the run he had constantly heckled back in school. Sucks to be you, I thought as I landed. In hindsight, I wish I had realized the trouble I was heading into. But being so caught up in the moment, I had no idea how badly things were going to go. The question and answer session began as it usually did, with CoinCounter being asked how much the wings would cost, how durable they were, and other often repeated inquiries. But while most of those came from the high-class ponies, things changed when the natives of Satalanka asked about the moral and ethical aspects of the wings themselves. CoinCounter stressed that the company wasn't trying to change the ways of nature, but rather allow ponies to fulfill their dreams of flight, no matter the species they were. As the questions kept coming, I realized I should have warned CoinCounter that Satalanka was one of the more conservative unicorn communities, priding themselves on proud and rich traditions of magical excellence. Anything that deviated from the tradition was shunned, and while there was some of the audience who liked the idea of being able to fly, most of them, especially the older, more influential unicorns, saw it as a threat to their way of life, and the purity of the unicorn race. As the end of the presentation arrived, CoinCounter said we had time for one more question. A unicorn at the very back of the crowd sent a magical flash of light into the sky. Yes, the stallion in the back. The unicorn came trotting up to the stage. He was about my age, slightly more muscular, and had the intense, focused gaze of someone who was highly intelligent. Taking the microphone, he said, "I got a question for Mr. Silverspeak." There was something about his voice that put me on alert, a smugness born from self-righteousness. Nonetheless, I took the microphone from CoinCounter. "Yes, go ahead," I said, making sure to keep my voice neutral. Well, what I'd like to know, Mr. Silverspeak, is how it's like to be a freak. Coin Counter moved to take the microphone back, but I held up a hoof. I'm not sure I understand what you mean, I said. You're a freak, you define nature and everything Celestia stands for. You're out there happily slapping wings on your back, and ignoring the consequences of doing so. And what consequences are those? I asked. You're going to have every deviant out there wanting to follow your example and define nature, that's what. You know how many ponies look up to you? They see you as some sort of rebel who defies Celestia and went against everything she stands for. Have you heard of any of the other interviews I've given? I said, noting that the radio operator had every microphone turned in my direction. Haven't you noticed I look up to her as a role model? The pony laughed. You can feel a lot of ponies, buddy, but An anger chill went through me. So many times in childhood, bullies had mockingly called me their buddy. And as a result, I felt a rush of anger whenever I heard that word. Especially when some punk used it as an insult. I'm not your buddy. I snarled. Excuse me? I said I'm not your buddy. I was having trouble keeping my temper in check. I could see Coin Counter was starting to panic. No doubt fearing I was going to lash out and create another PR nightmare. But I didn't care. I wanted to know why so many ponies didn't like what I was doing. And this unicorn was the embodiment of every pony who had mocked me up to this point. And, quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if you were one of those backwater fanatics who hate change. Uneducated, too proud to admit your own faults. And frothing at the mouth whenever you see something you don't like. Isn't that right, buddy? No one spoke. My parents looked like they were going to faint. The unicorn laughed. I'm a hardworking unicorn, just like my family and the family before them. And if you're so smart, then you'd know that most of Equestria doesn't like what you're doing. Doesn't surprise me seeing you probably live in a comfy little bubble where you're told whatever you want to hear. But the average pony out there sees those wings as the beginning of Equestria's downfall. Mind explaining that rather large gap in logic? If you start with wings, then what's stopping you from going to horns? What's to stop ponies from becoming Adicorns? If that happened, then no pony would be special or unique. But even without horns, everyone would be Pegasus ponies. It'd be a swarm, disrupting the natural order of things. And not to be boastful or anything, but if any kind of pony should take over as a dominant species, it should be the unicorns. We have the most power to change things, isn't that right? The crowd cheered. But we're humble too, we know our place. You don't, and if this little scheme of yours succeeds, and every pony out there destroys the natural order, it'd be anarchy. You'd be remembered as the one who started it all. But it's not going to happen, we're going to stop you. And how do you figure that? I demanded. You gonna get your little unicorn buddies and stab me through the eye in the alleyway somewhere? Nah, nothing that crude. All we got to do is convince Equestria that you're a freak. Mighty Silverspeak, the one who seeks to destroy the way of life that everyone has enjoyed for over 1,000 years. But hey, bug that, it's all about you, right? Go ahead and ignore your role and your place in things. In Liberal Manhattan, you may be a Messiah. But out here, with the rest of us hardworking ponies, you're an abomination. You're scum, This was my breaking point. Anger shoved aside rational thought as I dropped the microphone and leapt at the stallion, aiming to bug that stallion's smug face until his bones were liquefied goo. But a magical force grabbed hold of me before I could hit him and yanked me behind the curtains, where both Mangus and Coin Counter held me. Beatbreaker ran up to me. Silverspeak! I didn't notice her, fighting against the magic with everything I had. I didn't care that I couldn't escape, I just wanted to fight, to thrash and kick. Beatbreaker grabbed my face. Silverspeak, stop, it's okay, I lashed out and kicked her in the face, knocking Beatbreaker onto the stage. It took me a moment to realize what I had done. Seeing Beatbreaker lying on the floor snapped me out of my anger, and I went limp. Horrified at the blood that was trickling from her nose. Sensing that I wasn't gonna fight anymore, Coin Counter released his magical hold on me. When Mangus didn't, Coin Counter slapped him, and I fell on the floor, scrambling over to Beatbreaker. Beatbreaker! Beatbreaker sat up, hooves going to her nose. Beatbreaker, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Oh, Celestia, I'm sorry. Wiping the blood away, Beatbreaker stared at me, scarcely believing what just happened. We didn't hang around to see the aftermath of my leap, rushing from the stage before things really got out of hoof. Beatbreaker was taken to the train to get some medical treatment, while Mingus and his guards ushered us away. My parents quickly caught up, offering the house as a hiding spot. We took advantage of their offer and snuck away into the approaching night. When we got into the house, Mingus and the others put out spells of invisible energy to encircle the surrounding area, making it impossible for anyone to get close without setting off a magical alarm. Only when locks were thrown across the door did Coin Counter finally break his stunned silence. "This was a mistake," Coin Counter said. "I'm sorry, Silverspeak, we shouldn't have done this. We're gonna meet one of those hecklers sooner or later," I told him. "Better now than in Canterlot." Coin Counter shook his head. "We can say that you were provoked, but to have a fight break out, I never thought that would happen." Mingus grinned at me, looking mighty pleased with himself. "It doesn't matter now," my mom said, bringing me a mug of tea. "What's done is done, and there's no use going over what could have been." She thought for a moment. "If you're smart, you'll stay out of sight for the next few days, and give all this time to cool down." I could tell from Coin Counter's expression he wasn't convinced. Once a big event hits the newswire, the only thing you can do is wait for another big story to come along and make everyone else forget about you. Nor could we take off and make it seem like we were running away. For the moment, we were stuck. "Alright," Coin Counter said. "I'll get to work with our PR boys. Silverspeak, I think it's best till you stay here until we figure out what to do." "Gladly. That is, if my parents are okay with it." "I'm not gonna let my baby head out there after tonight," Mom said. "Not when the crowd might tear him apart." Dad nodded in agreement, not wanting to risk his son being mocked or worse. Relieved, Coin Counter headed for the door. "Mingus, you and the others keep a close eye on this house. Don't let anyone in who isn't family or a part of our group, understand?" Mingus nodded. "Of course." He glanced my way with a big grin. "Nobody's coming or going without my knowing." "Good," Coin Counter said. "Hopefully we can nip this thing in the bud before it gets out of hoof." I quickly got up and went to the door as Coin Counter went to the door. "Sir." "Yes?" Could you let Beatbreaker know I want to talk with her as soon as she's feeling better?" Coin Counter nodded. "I will, I promise." Then, opening the door, he slipped out into the night. Nobody much felt like talking or trying to lighten the mood. Not even one of Dad's 5-star meals lifted our spirits. Finally, giving up, we retired to our rooms and our own thoughts. Mingus and his guards got the guest room, while I headed upstairs to my old room. Entering it was like going through a time machine. While most of my stuff had been put into storage, my room looked almost exactly like when I left it. The bright blue walls were untouched, save for a fine cover of dust. Dust that covered a few pieces of childhood memorabilia on the shelves. It was tempting to look through my old things, but I decided to save it for another time, as I shook off the dust from my bed's comforter. It was surreal to lie in my old bed again. I almost felt like a child again, not having to worry about paying bills or dealing with life's inevitable disappointments. All I had back then were my dreams, and it seemed as if nothing could stop me from fulfilling them. Oh, how the times have changed. As it happened so many times before, I stared at the ceiling as the night went on, unable to sleep, the events of the day rushing back to me again and again. Worst of all of them was seeing Beatbreaker lying on the floor with a cracked nose. That memory stung far more than anything the heckler had said to me. As midnight quickly came and went, I got out of bed and headed downstairs as quickly as I could, hoping that my mom's old remedy of warm milk could help me sleep. Reaching the kitchen, I poured myself a glass, heated it up, and started to drink it. I was halfway through when someone entered the kitchen. "Late night refrigerator raid?" Not being in the mood to talk to Mingus, I drank fast. "You know, I never thought I'd see the day when you attack someone. Especially an innocent pony who only wanted to ask you a question." "Back off, Mingus. I'm not interested in anything you have to say." "Oh, I think you will be after I slammed the glass on the counter. "May I remind you that you're a guest in my parents' home. You bother any of us, and we can throw you out." Mangus positioned himself between me and the doorway. Such a temper, when did I deserve such treatment? I started for the exit, fully intending to shove Mangus aside, but he shoved me first. I've been wondering, Silverspeak, what drove you to become so violent? The same drive to get those wings? That's none of your business. Oh, but it is. I tried to shove past Mangus again, but instead of pushing back, he grabbed me with his magic. I was about to shout out when Mangus's horn flashed again, and my mouth was suddenly clamped shut. Mangus's smug smile gave way to an angry snarl. Why you? He growled. Why does a wimpy earth pony become so famous? I thrashed, trying to force my mouth open, which felt like it was glued shut with concrete. The harder I tried, the more I sweat, not from the exertion. Mangus had me at his mercy. He could have sliced up my skin with a kitchen knife, and I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. It's not fair. Mangus growled. I should be the one in your place. Mangus Bluehorn, one of the most talented unicorns of his generation, who ends up working as a security guard. And you, a good-for-nothing earth pony, gets all the fame. He yanks me close. Why? Why do you get everything and I get nothing? He drew in close. But I shouldn't complain, he whispered. Not really, not after what the Manhattan librarian told me. I froze. It was interesting, really. I thought I was going to be stuck in that library for the rest of my career. And then one day, out of the blue, the head librarian told me that Metacomp was looking for a new security team. I guess she was impressed by my performance, as she would put in a word for me. And then boom! The boys and I got hired to protect Metacomp. He smiled. But you know something that's really interesting? Before I left, she told me that the pony that went out of the forbidden section was at Metacomp, and possibly might go after the wings. Why, it's like she knew exactly who it was. I couldn't stop the color draining from my face. So, I was told to watch that pony, to see how they acted and make sure they didn't become a danger. And if that happened, to take appropriate measures. He stepped close. All this time, I've been waiting for a reason to act. Any at all, and don't make any mistakes, Silver Freak. If you prove yourself to be a danger to everyone around you, I will take you out. After all, you've proven today that you're happy to attack those that don't like you. He dropped me to the ground and walked out of the kitchen. Have a nice night. I lay there for several minutes, my heart pounding wildly. The librarian had recommended Mangus' group of goons to guard Metacomp's building. She knew I worked there. She probably figured I was the one who had tried to steal those wings. And if she knew I'd been the one to break into the library, then she must have told Mangus to keep an eye on me. Mangus knew I'd broken into the library. Panic overwhelmed me until I felt my heart was going to stop. I could no longer control my frantic breathing or the sweat falling onto the tiled floor. He knows, I thought. Oh, Celestia, Mangus knows. He knows what I did.